I'd like to pose a question to you. What does it take to create something with somebody who you've never met? Almost my entire life, all I've ever wanted to do is play music. In fact, almost all of the most exciting moments of change in my life have involved music in some way. I spend most of my professional life as a percussionist, which essentially means I hit things for a living. But it also means that the majority of my life is based around rhythm. There's been music in my family since I was very young. My dad is a composer and probably my biggest creative influence. Every year from the age of 6 or 7, I would go down into town at Christmas, just a few hundred yards from where we were supposed to be today, pre-COVID, and watch the Hampshire County Youth Band playing the Christmas hits. I'd stand there utterly transfixed and dream of a time when one day that might be me. Although I couldn't articulate it at the time, I knew that this was something that I had to do. The musicians with their music and their rhythms had communicated something to me. It looked elating and complex and terrifying, but also it looked like a kind of freedom. Freedom to express, create, and inspire. By the age of 12, having played the piano for a few years, my parents finally relented and allowed me to have a drum kit in the house. Whilst this was, without doubt, the most exciting thing that had ever happened to me, I think it's probably fair to say I didn't endear myself to the neighbours very much, especially one neighbour in particular who needed to sleep in the day because of work. But nonetheless, I persevered, and a couple of years later I was able to join the county youth band, which I'd been watching for all those years at Christmas. About 7 or 8 years later, being a musician finally became my career. That's just my experience of music, but it's pretty clear that music communicates something important to vast numbers of people. For quite literally billions of people, music is woven into the fabric of their everyday lives. They wake up to it, commute whilst listening to it, go to see it performed live, fall asleep to it, and just listen to it. According to MRC data and Nielsen Music, in 2019 in America alone, 1.15 trillion songs were streamed, which equates to an average of roughly 3,500 songs per person. Now, you may well think that beyond consuming music as a listener, rhythm doesn't have a part to play in the rest of your life. But the fact is that rhythm is a universal, integral part of life, and it surrounds us every day. Whether it's a song played on the radio, the repeated churning of your washing machine spin cycle, or that irritating drip from the shower that you've been meaning to get fixed, rhythm is virtually omnipresent. But to me, rhythm is much more than a constituent part of a world in flux. It presents almost limitless possibilities, and crucially, it's accessible to everyone. You might quite reasonably think that you couldn't possibly communicate or collaborate musically with somebody else unless you play an instrument, but the fact is that you all possess the simplest tool required to do so: the human body. In fact, I'm willing to bet that the majority of people watching this have at some point already today produced a musical rhythmic pulse simply by walking along. So, why are rhythm and music important? Well, I believe that the benefits of group music making are pretty obvious and tangible, and it would appear that huge numbers of people in the UK agree. In 2017, Voices Now launched the Big Choral Census and found that there are over 40,000 choirs in the UK, even suspecting that this number may be too low. This equates to over 2 million people singing in choirs, and is 300,000 more people than play amateur football every week. At a time when communication and collaboration seem more important than ever on a societal level, the shared experience of group music making affords people an opportunity to meet, share ideas, and produce a creative output. But what about the rhythms that surround us in our everyday lives? Well, when was the last time you simply listened to what's around you? It might not work for everybody, but I believe that being more attuned to your surroundings can only be a positive step. I'm also fascinated by the accessibility of rhythm because I believe that it's quite easy to be put off group music making by the perception that particularly classical music could be seen as in some way elitist or to some extent judgmental. In classical music circles, I often hear people extolling the virtues of being at one with your instrument, or your instrument being like an extension of your body. But what if your instrument is your body? If you accept the human body as a starting point for a creative process, you can immediately bypass the idea of good and bad technique, and you're free to create, innovate, or even develop an understanding with somebody else. And this is where you come in. We're going to make a piece of music together. All we need to do is play 2 rhythms using our bodies and nothing else. So we need the sound of our feet on the floor, our hands on our knees, and our hands clapping. We're going to have 2 rhythms. Rhythm 1 goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's pretty much like walking along, except you can stay on your seat and move your feet instead. Walking along with a clap on every 4th. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's your turn to join in. Here we go. 1, 2, go now. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Very nice. I'm guessing that was fairly straightforward for most people. So rhythm 2 is very similar but slightly different at the beginning. So instead of this, 1, 2, 3, 4, we've got this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if you're not sure about the beginning bit of the rhythm, then think of the name of our event. Use the word Winchester. Sometimes using a word can be really helpful in learning a rhythm. So, think Winchester, Winchester. And if you need to say it out loud, that's absolutely fine. There's no one there to watch you except whoever you're watching with, so it doesn't matter how silly you look. So now we're going to practice putting those 2 rhythms together. We're going to go from rhythm 1, which is this. 1, 2, 3, 4, into this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Ready? Here's rhythm 1. And when you see this, swap to the second one. 1, 2, 3, go. Fantastic. So, little tip, if the second rhythm is too tricky or it's difficult to keep up, either stick with number 1, that's absolutely fine, just stay there instead of swapping when we get there, or you can just do the hands. Winchester. Okay. All that's left to do is to put our music together, hopefully 200 people playing as one from their homes, and I'll see you at the end. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, I'd like to refer you back to the question I asked at the beginning. What does it take to create something with someone who you've never met? Now, you and I don't know each other well, but as I hope we've just proven, when we really listen, the possibility for communication and collaboration is much closer than you might think, especially considering we're not in the same room. If the rhythm of the body is all that's needed as a basis for creativity, then why not give it a go sometime and see where it leads? Thank you.